Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe as we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports in Week 6. We set off this Week 6 of the NFL tonight with the exciting matchup of the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. Hopefully Justin Fields gives us, like Nate said before he came near, some kind of a highlight. Other than that, I don't know the reason why I'll be tuning in, but I will be watching it anyways because I guess the Yankees can't play in rain. They already rained themselves out today. So
it has to be Justin Fields because Justin Fields doesn't have any help. So I don't know if you've noticed, but any of the flash plays of the Bears, it's always Justin Fields doing it because everybody else sucks. So right. and it goes to the thing, is Justin Fields good? I don't really know yet. I'm not going to say whether he's a good NFL quarterback or not. He was a great college quarterback. Whether he's a great NFL quarterback or not, I don't know, but it's very hard to tell with the bullshit that's around him.
Yeah, I agree because it's one of those things where he'll probably end up having to go. It's one of the reasons why, Chicago's never had a great quarterback. I mean, Jim McMahon's probably their most successful if you think about it, as far as championships come. But I'm sorry, usually Chicago draft choices go somewhere else to be successful, or they're not successful at all. Got a lot of things to go over this week. One thing that's disturbing to me because I read it before he came on the air, some idiot ESPN commentator saying how the Giants should not be trying to win this year. They should be working for draft choices. And I'm sitting there going, they're having their best. I don't get these idiots who get jobs on sports talk radio or sports, television that build everything around the draft. Your job as a coach is to win as many games possible with the team you have and hopefully save your job until you get enough players where you can compete for championships.
They're 4-1. Right. I mean, what do you want? You want them to lose now? I mean, right. the whole thing. I mean, think about all the coaches even that were just in New York for a year. I mean, there was a couple of coaches that got fired after 1 year. So you can't tell me as a coach that I'm supposed to lose on purpose when you're going to can me after one season. Right. And once again, as we've all learned, the draft is no sure thing. I mean,
the draft is about a 50-50 proposition.
In the first round, maybe 50-50 and potentially even less. So, you can't tell me that. And we've seen it in the past few years. Teams that have really wanted a guy, they've moved capital around and gotten up in those first 5 picks and gotten who they wanted to anyway, regardless of how there's. I mean, look at San Francisco. They went, deep in the playoff run and got their guy at quarterback anyway. I mean, whether or not he's good, I don't know. But they moved up to 3rd and got their guy in the draft that they wanted, regardless of how they finished the season.
And look at the LA Rams. They got Jared Goff, number 2 in the draft. And eventually, number 1, okay, and eventually had to sell him for a better quarterback to win their championship once they put the team together.
Yep.
So there's no one way to do this. And that's what kills me in sports is they try and say there's one way to do it and you follow this plan and it works. No. Right now, Brian Daboll is, and we're going to talk more about that later on the game, so I don't want to talk about our show. I'll talk about it right now. But right now he's building something in New York. He's building a winning philosophy, a winning
culture.
He's revived Saquon Barkley's career. That's another one. They want to trade Saquon Barkley. Okay. And then what?
Yeah. He's your best player. You don't want to trade your best player that is winning you these games. He's the sole reason that they've won at least 2, maybe 3 of these games. It was all because of him. And you're telling me you want to ship him out of town? That's ridiculous. And, not to go backwards here, but you were talking about the Commanders and the Bears. Did you hear what Ron Rivera said earlier this week?
Quarterbacks being the problem?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, buddy. Wasn't he involved in picking Carson Wentz? You're not allowed to pick somebody and then 6 games in blame everything on that guy. Plus, this is his 6th quarterback he's had since he's been in Washington. Yeah. None of them have worked. I mean, they went through Haskins. They've been through Fitzpatrick. They've been through Wentz. They've been through, 20 quarterbacks, and it's all the quarterback's fault. This defense that's supposed to be magical has looked like garbage.
Yeah, I mean that's the one place I would blame. I would blame Ron Rivera. The reputation or the old rumors they used to say about Dan Snyder is he would go out when he first got to town. No matter who the coach was, he would go out and have a few cocktails with Billy Kilmer and Sonny Jurgensen and decide who the quarterback was going to be and tell the coach who the quarterback's going to be. Yeah. So I mean, here's a guy who kind of sticks his nose in. So I'm going to give Ron Rivera at least as where quarterback comes. I don't know if Carson Wentz was his pick. He may not have been. But definitely the defense that was 2 years ago looked like it was on its way to being what the Cowboys are now is totally flat. I mean, but I mean, around the NFL right now this year, we could talk about defenses being a problem. And right now, let's get right into the topic. With the way the referees are going to start throwing laundry, if you breathe on a quarterback, it was bad enough before the Tua injury, how they would call it. Now it's going to get even worse. And we saw this past weekend with Tom Brady. We saw it with Patrick Mahomes and with Derek Carr. They're throwing penalties for no reason. I understand you're trying to protect these valuable commodities for the NFL, but when did they ever? What about no harm, no foul? I mean, what are these guys supposed to do? I mean, even Troy Aikman's talking about it.
Well, and in this particular play, he takes the ball right
and breaks the fall with his left arm.
He's got the ball in his hands, so he's not. How is he roughing the passer when the quarterback is no longer passing the ball and is no longer even a passer at this point?
You keep it going forward if you can.
Yeah, at this point, he's got the ball, and then he falls on the ground, puts his left arm down right there.
Yeah.
And braces himself so that he doesn't land. Look at that right there. Right. He puts his left arm down so that he's not landing with his full weight on top of Carr. This is no way, shape, or form roughing the passer. It's not even close. I get that all the rules now are made for the offense. They want scoring. I get all that. But you cannot start penalizing these defensive players for doing their jobs. Yeah. You can't do that or you're going to ruin the game of football. And that's basically what I saw this past two, the past 2 days, the Sunday and Monday. They ruined the games. The Falcons game, the Falcons are down by 6. They're coming back. They stop them on, what was it? 3rd and long. They sack Tom Brady. I wish I had the video of that one, but Grady Jarrett just basically throws, Tom Brady to the ground in one motion as he's sacking him. And instead of it, the ref says something to Tom Brady and then throws a flag. And then all of a sudden, instead of the Falcons having the ball and having a chance to go down and win the game down 6, the game's over because the Buccaneers can just run the clock out. And that's just grotesque.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like Tom Brady needs more advantages. I mean, he already gets a lot of the calls. And I'm not trying to pick on just him. I mean, if this is going to be what it's going to be like the rest of the year with these quarterbacks, you might as well drop 11 into coverage. Because it's ridiculous. There wasn't even a tough hit. Neither of those were tough hits. I've seen worse. Did you see the last sack of Stafford by the Cowboys on Sunday?
Yes.
3 guys hit him. It looked like a mugging, and there was no penalty called.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
we all know what this is about. As you mentioned, this is all based upon what happened with Tua, but
it wasn't the referee's fault.
Well, there wasn't anything done. There wasn't a penalty on the play where Tua was injured. There wasn't a penalty on either one of the plays. The whole thing around the Tua situation was the Dolphins screwed up. Right. He should have been taken out of the game when he was obviously concussed. We all knew he was concussed. He got up and fell back down twice. Right. He shouldn't have gone back in the game. They put him back in the game because they wanted to win, and it backfired on them because A, people all knew that he shouldn't have gone back in the game, and then B, he played in the next game, which he shouldn't have been playing, and he got concussed again. So that's all fine and dandy. Go after the Dolphins all you want, but don't ruin the game of football because the Dolphins screwed up.
No, and it's also implying intent where there was no intent involved. There was no targeting. It wasn't a hit to the head. His head just happened to hit the turf, and that's going to happen on a tackle. That's going to happen. So I don't know how they think, making these referees aware or making them call more penalties is going to prevent this from happening. They're not doing anything to keep the offensive and defensive linemen from crashing their heads together on every down, and that's probably more damaging than any of the hits the quarterbacks get.
Well, it's a violent game. I mean, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be concussions. There's no way that you're ever going to get that taken totally out of the game. But you can't just start calling roughing the passer calls because you're trying to protect the quarterback when he doesn't even need protection. I mean, it's just absolutely ludicrous. And it's not just us. I mean, anyone who watched that game, both those games, thought that each of those calls were ridiculous. Tony Dungy, for example, who's a Super Bowl winning coach, he said that's not football. He said, you can't, that was football. And if you take that play out of football, that it's no longer football. I mean, if we want to play flag, let's start a flag football league, but this isn't flag football. This is tackle football. And these guys are tackling these guys and getting 15 yards for it. And it's just horrible to watch, honestly.
And let's just think of this logically, and maybe this will make no sense, and you can tell me if I'm making no sense now. But you throw the guy down, you get a 15-yard penalty. Say he does smack his head and he gets a concussion. Did it prevent the concussion? No.
No.
What are you going to do? Start whistling when the guy blowing the whistle when the guy gets close to a quarterback? Because that's the only way to prevent any kind of collision, is to blow the play dead as soon as the guy gets within 2 steps of hitting him.
Right. Or once he touches the quarterback, the play's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to do that, but I've seen so many, and that's the other thing that you've got to remember and that people don't even talk about a lot is if you go back and look at a lot of these plays where especially Mahomes, Brady even, I've seen these quarterbacks, some of these quarterbacks are big guys too. Yeah. Big Ben, for example, there's these big defensive linemen get a hold of them and the quarterbacks eventually, spin, turn, and they get away. And
in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, there's countless examples where these quarterbacks get away from the defender's grasp. And if you start calling these plays where they actually do tackle them roughing, it's going to make their job even harder.
And the other thing, going back to the Brady issue, very few people have brought it up. But if you watch that play again, Brady actually kicks the guy who sacked him. He kicked him, tried to kick him in the balls.
Yes, but
there was no flag.
There's no talk about that. Brady can do whatever he wants, but if you sack him, you're penalized. So,
yeah. So that was they've got to come. I understand their heart's in the right place, but it is football, like you said. It's a violent sport that has been going on forever. It's what we live to watch. It's what these guys live to play. And I mean, I just don't see that this roughing the passer, making that something so intrinsic to the game is going to prevent injuries. First of all, because like I said, the penalty comes after the hit is made, and B, all you're doing is taking away competitive advantage from one team that played good defense.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel so bad for Chris Jones. If you think back a couple of weeks ago, the Colts game where Chris Jones, said something to where he got a penalty when he had they had stopped the Colts. And I can't remember if he sacked Matt Ryan or laid a hit on him, but he said something and got a 15-yard personal foul, and it allowed the Colts to end up winning the game. Well, here he is doing exactly what he's supposed to do, making an unbelievable play where he not only gets a hold of the quarterback, but he strips the ball away from the quarterback, falls on the ball, takes the ball away, and he gets penalized for that. And I just feel bad for him because, man, that he's an amazing defensive lineman. He is one of the top 3 defensive tackles in all of football, and he's just had a rough go of it the past few weeks based upon the officials.
And like you said, they're making it harder and harder for these guys to play defense. Defensive backs can't hit you and can't, defend anymore. I mean, I don't know.
That's the other thing I've seen a lot too. I mean, the rough and the passer calls are obviously discussed at nauseum, and we're talking about it too as well. We should, if we're going to talk about the NFL. But the other things that I've seen countless is, if there's a play where it's not a complete pass, I mean, 6 out of 8 of them, they're getting a pass interference call. And It's like if the guy touches him, if the guy bumps into him, I've seen instances where, they don't turn around all the way. I mean, there's just so many plays where I've seen pass interference called. And there's some, where you could say, oh, okay, well, it's questionable. I guess he didn't get his head around, or he didn't get his head around quick enough, or there was contact before the ball there. But I've seen other calls where it's a perfect play, and the defensive back did exactly what he was supposed to do, and they call him for pass interference anyway. And I'm just like, God, it's just getting ridiculous.
It is, and I'm a guy who likes defense. I don't want to see 45, 42 every game. If I want to do that, I'll just buy an Xbox and play myself, because it's no fun watching a track meet, especially when it's dictated by bad officiating. I mean, it's one thing if you come up and the teams are very good and they just happen to play that well, but no, I don't want to see it like in baseball what they're trying to do to put more offense in. It's just ridiculous. And I want to get into coaching, because we've seen bad coaching so far this year, and we can go right back to the said Raider Kansas City game where Josh McDaniel, for some reason, why he went for 2 made no sense to me at all. I don't know where. I'm not an analytics guy, and if you ever saw my math scores, I suck at math. But whether they were in front by a point or tied, there was still 4:12 on the clock, and his defense would have to stop Patrick Mahomes from getting Kansas City into field goal range. So I don't see where at least the time means if you do stop him, you have a good chance of getting into overtime. So I don't get that.
And I'm so sick of hearing the word analytics used for when the coach screws up. The coach, decides to go for 2, doesn't get it, puts his team in a horrible position. They're like, well, analytics told him to go for it there. Bullshit. He's down by a point. There's, like you said, over 4 minutes on the clock. You got to have some faith in your defense. They decide to go for 2. They don't get it. Well, then their defense stops them. Right. And so, and they get the ball back and they have a chance to go down and win. But the whole point is, if they would have just kicked the extra point, even if they didn't go down and score, which they didn't, they would have gone to overtime and had a chance to win there. So that made absolutely no, analytics and a schmitics, I don't care what you're looking at. That made absolutely no sense to me. You did a fine job of getting down there and scoring and, knotting the game up. And instead of kicking the damn extra point and tying the game, you go for 2 and don't get it and then lose the game by 1. It was very, very stupid in my opinion. And let's be honest, all the things that Josh McDaniels had supposedly fixed with his coaching, he seems to me to be making a lot of the same mistakes. And the Raiders are a team that have been in nearly every ball game. And here we are, they're 1-4 at the halfway, at the 6-game point. So it's not looking good for them.
That was the first Raider game I can say I really watched this year. And like you said, you see some talent there. You see they've got things in place. But I'll guarantee you, if you went over every game, there's probably a Josh McDaniel decision that you sit there and go, WTF, huh?
Yeah, it's not like they were playing the Commanders. They were playing the Chiefs in Arrowhead. and they lost by 1 point. I mean,
and they got out to a lead, and just like against the Cardinals, let them come back.
Right, the Cardinals game, that was an atrocious coaching game. I mean, they were up by 21 points at halftime, and ended up, or 20 points at halftime, and end up losing the game 29-23 because they essentially do nothing in the second half, and can't stop them. I mean, I think they actually it was 23-0, if my memory serves me correct, because they scored 3 points in the start of the third quarter and then never scored again. And it just seemed to me like he was playing, not to lose, instead of doing what they did in the first half, which allowed them to get a lead. So, not been impressed with Coach McDaniels thus far.
And then you got the coach out of the Chargers, who tried his best to give away that game away to Cleveland. I mean, why are you not punting? Why are you going for, what was it, a 4th and 7? I got it right here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact yardage, but it wasn't like a 4th and 1. And they were right they were on their side of the field.
Right.
So
this is the stuff we talked about with him last year, Mr. Fourth Down Crazy. And this is what kept the Chargers pretty much out of the playoffs last year. And you would think, I know he's a young coach, but you would think he would have learned from last year from those mistakes. And I mean, you have one of the best young quarterbacks. You got Eckler having a great game, and you try and give it away.
Yeah, it was 4th and 2. No, that's not right. I'm trying to remember exactly the yardage, but it's just
7.
This was, this is what he was doing last year. Yeah, no, that was earlier in the game. No, I mean, this was the problem last year, where he would refuse to punt, and I never understood it. But kind of said, okay, well, it's a first-year coach. He's kind of feeling his way around. Well, he lost some games last year because he refused to kick the ball away. And now it's like he's continuing to do it. He got really lucky. I mean, the Browns went in and missed a field goal. I believe it was a 54-yarder. So his defense, bailed him out. But they could have easily lost that game just based on his refusal to punt the football.
And then let's go all the way back to last Thursday with – I'll tell you, if Hackett makes it through half the year, I would be shocked. This time he puts the ball in Russell Wilson's hands when he could have tied the game with a field goal.
That was absolutely ridiculous. They had the game won. They were up by 3, and they were driving. They were inside. I can't remember if they were inside the red zone or they were right outside of it. But all they had to do, they were running the ball pretty well. All they had to do was continue to run the ball. And even if they get stopped, kick a field goal, go up by 6 and run the clock out and win the game.
Right.
But instead, he has Russell Wilson, who had already thrown an interception in the game, didn't look good at any point in this ball game. He hasn't looked good all year, let's be honest. And he calls a play to try and get him to throw a touchdown. He throws it into double coverage, gets an interception, and then ends up losing and giving the Colts a bunch of momentum. I was completely blown away by that. And, let's be honest. I mean, nothing that coach, and I say coach because I guess that is his title, but, calling Coach Hackett coach at this point is kind of stretching it.
Yeah, and I mean, and now apparently Wilson's been dealing with a bad shoulder because he went out and had some kind of procedure this week. So why is he even playing? I mean, either he can play or can't play. I understand you went out and threw all these draft choices, and you paid him all this extra money to come. But if he can't play, he can't play. And nothing from Hackett. There's nothing in any game that you watch from Hackett. I mean, it took Jimmy Garoppolo stepping out of the end zone for them to win one week. I mean, I don't see how he ever got the job. Maybe he has some kind of maybe Paul Hackett and John Elway, Hackett's father, go way back when. I think Paul Hackett was a Stanford guy.
Yeah,
Or
I
it
think
was
so
USC?
too. Yeah, I think he was at Stanford when Elway was there. They have some sort of connection, but it goes back to hiring these coordinators who aren't even calling the plays. So
Right.
you're going to hire an offensive coordinator who doesn't even call the plays up in Green Bay.
Right.
LaFleur calls the plays. It wasn't Hackett. So what the
Yeah.
hell did he really even do? I don't know. But obviously he wasn't ready to be a head coach because he's looked lost almost the entire time he's been in Denver.
And let's be truthful. LaFleur barely calls those plays because Aaron Rodgers is going to change it if he wants when it comes in.
Correct.
So, I mean,
But he installs all the concepts. It's
yeah, I know.
LaFleur's
I know.
offense, not Hackett's.
No, I
So
agree.
I was kind of shocked when I saw them hire him. And let's be honest, I have not been impressed with anything he's done thus far as the head coach of the
We
Broncos.
might go. You look around the league, and I mean, Matt Rule finally got sent. I mean, he's probably going to be on the beaches in Carolina making a ton of money just sitting there doing nothing. And rightfully so. That owner's going to have to pay all that money to this guy for being unsuccessful. But he leaves that team in such a mess. I mean, right now, you and I spent the whole offseason defending Baker Mayfield, and I don't know if he's somebody that can be fixed. I know he's injured now, and thank God he's going to sit for a while. But what kind of coaches? I know somebody will go there because it is one of 32. There's only 32 of those jobs in the world, so somebody's going to go there. But man, whoever walks in the door there is just inheriting a mess.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a mess for a while, ever since Cam, got injured for the second time. I had the foot injury, and then he had the shoulder, and he just wasn't the same guy. They just haven't had a quarterback. And let's be honest, I mean, it hasn't just been the quarterback. I mean, I know that all the blame got thrust on Sam Darnold, and rightfully so because he sucks. And now all the blame's going on Baker Mayfield because that's how people do it. They give all the praise to the quarterback, but
the McCaffrey contract is a joke.
yeah, that set that franchise back. He got tons of money and he hasn't even played. But this defense that's supposed to be all world gave up 37 points to the 49ers.
Right.
So don't tell me that it's all quarterback based. Your defense can't stop anybody.
No.
And they've been consistently giving up big plays. They've been consistently getting worked. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. Jeff Wilson ran for over 120 yards against them. So you can't defend either running or passing, and the offense is a mess. I don't know. The offensive line is no good either. So they've consistently tried to fix the offensive line, and they can't do that. They can't get a quarterback. This franchise is in a bad spot, and somebody will take this job, but they're going to have to get somebody in here who can build this thing from the ground up because it's time to just start over, I think, in Carolina.
Yeah, but the only thing about that is there's not that many guys around that can do that unless you can get like a GM coach situation. These two guys like joined at the hip, like when the Giants first got George Young and he hired Ray Perkins who hired Bill Parcells, so that ended up working out, and that's a long time ago. You don't have those kind of guys around anymore. You don't really have those coaches. Like you said, the hot coordinator, but is that hot coordinator because like Byron Leftwich will probably be one of the big guys they look at, but you still got to wonder: is it Leftwich or is it Brady?
Yeah, or Arians, who was instrumental in that offense and is still working there and assisting with the coaching. So I don't know how great Leftwich would be as a head coach. I think he's a good offensive coordinator, but we just don't know what these coordinators are, especially guys like Leftwich who have never been a head coach in their entire lives until they get there. And everybody was riding the McDonald bandwagon for the Dolphins when they were 3-0. Well, in case you haven't noticed, they're 3-2 now, and he's getting some major heat from the Tua situation. And I'm sure their owner will throw him under the bus, just like he does everybody else. So it's not guaranteed to work out when you hire the next hotshot coordinator to your team.
While you bring him up, if you ever get a chance, look up Ernie from My Three Sons. It was a 1960s sitcom, black and white. He looks just like that kid. Just so you know.
He does look like he's about 15 in some
does.
instances. But, yeah, I mean, we got to talk about Zach Taylor, too. I mean, this is a guy, if you look at his record before Joe Burrow got there, what did he win, like 3 games in 2 years? And then, then he gets Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow gets extremely hot the year after his big knee surgery and leads them all to the way to the Super Bowl. We could, go break down that Super Bowl tape and find a lot of mistakes by the coaching. But this year so far in the Bengals, the coaching has just been horrible. And that Ravens game, I mean, 19-17, that's as close as it gets. And there was a lot of bad play calling. There was a lot of time management mistakes that were made. And I see that week after week in Cincinnati. But too bad you're stuck with them now. You just gave them a raise and an extension after getting to the Super Bowl. So good luck with that. They're 2-3 right now, 5 weeks in.
And they're the cheapest franchise in football. So they're not one to, we made a mistake, we'll pay his contract and get a better coach in here. You're stuck with him.
Yeah, he's going to be there for a while. He's going to be there for the duration.
Exactly.
I just don't know if that's going to be good for them because like we mentioned before the year, they're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore. And it's going to come down to a lot. I mean, every single one of their games so far, if you go back and look at it, have been one-score games. Week 1, lost to Pittsburgh in overtime, 23-20. Week 2, they lost 20-17 against the Cowboys. Week 3, they won 27-12 over the Jets. Then they won over the Dolphins. And then this game where they lost 19-17 to the Ravens. So the offense has not scored more than 27 points all year long. And they've got a whole lot of weapons on this team. I mean, you got Jamar Chase, you've got Tyler Boyd, you got T. Higgins, you got Joe Mixon, and you can't run the ball and you can't score points. Something's amiss.
Well, it's a good thing you segued right into it because I want to talk about 3 of the premier franchises who right now, 2 of them have a chance to really get back on track. They've got to do some things. But we'll start right there in Pittsburgh, who really look to be headed for being one of the worst teams in football right now with a coach I know you and I both respect. But, usually Tomlin could get a lot out of that team. I know the Bills are a great team, but they did not look like they belonged in the same field with the Bills on Sunday. And the thing about it is the fight seems to be taking a little bit out of this team, which is not really a Pittsburgh trait. Usually they're known for being a feisty team, but the only thing feisty was their young quarterback on the field on Sunday, where they just seemed overwhelmed by the Bills. And you got to wonder, how does Tomlin right this ship? And, I know they lost their longtime GM over the course of the year. He was there for the draft and then retired. The guy had been there for 22 years and put together many of the teams for Bill Cowher and Tomlin. And you're a better personnel type guy. When you look at this Pittsburgh team, is it a personnel problem?
Partially, definitely. I mean, I think the biggest, and you were talking about Kevin Colbert, who
Right.
was the GM for the Steelers for a long time. And I respect Kevin Colbert quite a bit. I think he was a great GM. I think he did a lot of good things. But, I have to criticize him in some way, shape, or form because the offensive line has been a mess for 3 years now. They got old really quick on the O-line. They had their center who abruptly retired. Him and his twin brother retired there. The 2 guys from Florida. I can't remember his name right now, but, he retired abruptly, and they had Villanueva they decided to move on from. And, they just kind of decided they were going to overhaul or whether they wanted to or not, had to overhaul the O-line. And the decisions they've made, the guys they brought in, just haven't worked out. I mean, let's talk a little bit about this game. I mean, I know they got away from the quickly in the Bills game because they were getting hammered. So, that's one thing. But they just can't run the football. I mean, Najee Harris last week averaged 1.8 yards a carry.
Yeah.
You're not going to win any games doing that.
And he's too talented to be doing that. He's just getting hit too hard.
Yeah, and I mean, if you even go back to the first game of the season, against the Bengals, the game they did win, they really weren't able to run the football in that game either. I mean, the leading rusher in that game was the wide receiver, Chase Claypool, who had 6 carries for 36 yards. When your wide receiver is leading your team in rushing, something is wrong. The other thing is the defense. The defense is just not what it used to be. The steel curtain is long gone, buddy. They just haven't looked good on defense. Cameron Haywood, who a lot of people think is old, hell, he's probably their best player on defense right now. And I feel bad for him because the secondary has just looked lost at times. I mean, it looked like the Bills were playing 7-on-7 with the way they were just throwing the ball down the field. 98-yard touchdown. Are you freaking kidding me?
Right.
You can't let people behind you like that. And I said it from the beginning. Kenny Pickett should have been the starter from day one. They've lost 4 games now, and this was his first start. So you decide to throw the kid out there who you weren't going to start at the beginning of the year. You decide to throw him out there against probably the best team in football. That was a bad move. And honestly, I thought he played pretty well considering who he was playing against and the situation. I thought he did a pretty good job, but they're too talented in some areas. I mean, you want to talk about, personnel. They've got probably one of the best wide receiver cores in football. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. I like their tight end, Freiermuth. Then they've got, Najee Harris. I mean, they've got good skill players. They're just not getting it done. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence, but the offense isn't playing well. The defense isn't playing well. They got a lot of problems in Pittsburgh, and I just don't know how they fix it with what they got.
No, I think it's going to be tough for them to fix in the fly, especially with a young quarterback. And like you said, an offensive line is questionable. I mean, we watched it with the Giants for 4 years with Daniel Jones. If he's running for his life, he's not going to be able to find anybody. So there you go.
Yeah, they've had to draft a lot of guys up there to get the line to the position that it is up there in New York. But at least they have, Andrew Thomas. They've got Neal.
Right.
Evan Neal, they drafted from Alabama this past year. They've got 2 guys that can, make things happen. I mean, who is the guy that anchors this offensive line for the Steelers? Who is the guy that just always beats their dude up on their line? I mean, I just remember thinking back, Alan Faneca, Dermontti Dawson.
Oh, yeah.
Just go back through the years. They always had these big maulers who, could open up holes in the running game, could hold guys off for whoever was playing quarterback. They just don't have those guys anymore. And until they get this offensive line fixed, I just don't see anywhere for this offense to go because they can't run the ball and they're forced to throw it every down.
And a young quarterback's going to make his mistakes, so that's another problem.
Yeah.
Then we got the Rams who, got beat up by the Cowboys. I mean, there's another guy with another problem with offensive line problems. And also, you pointed out last week, Allen Robinson has not clicked. You have one wide receiver that Stafford trusts, and he made the one play of the game for that offense. Otherwise, it was basically a Dallas Cowboys show.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame Matt Stafford. I said he looked a little rusty in the first week or 2, but honestly, it hasn't been him. I mean, he was sacked 5 times in this game and was hit, seemed like every other play. So I really can't blame him. They can't get their running game going to save their lives. I mean, we know this offense is predicated on the run. I mean, They run the football first. They set the pass up with the run. They use play action. That's what Sean McVay's offense is. Well, there's no running. I mean, they had 38 yards rushing against the Cowboys. And I know the Cowboys have a good defense. The Cowboys defense is playing great, but you still have to be able to run the football in some way, shape, or form, and they can't do that. And then they have one wide receiver. Besides Cooper Kupp, they've got nothing. I mean, Allen Robinson has been a major disappointment. They still haven't gotten Van Jefferson out in this field. I'm not sure if when he's coming back, but they need him big time. But I don't know how great he really is, and I'm just not sure if he's going to be the savior that can turn this thing around for the Rams. And I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, I think they're definitely in trouble, and I just think Aaron, like you said, Aaron Donald can't do it all on defense, and Matt Stafford can't do it on offense. They need help, and that's I guess OBJ is sitting out there still, but I guess he's saying that they're not offering him any money, so he's not looking to come into camp. So the other team wanted to talk about and love it. I loved it. Made my Sunday morning. My God, the Giants coming back and beating the Packers. And here's another team where you look at it, and I never thought, especially when the Packers got out to a lead, that the Giants would come back on them. But they shut down two things here. We'll go to the Giants in a minute, but they shut down Aaron Rodgers in the second half. They did a good job on him. And it looks like he's still not comfortable with the new receivers or that offense. He misses Devontae Adams maybe too much, but they're supposed to have that running game they can depend on. And when they have a 10-point lead on the Giants?
They were up 20-10 at halftime.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. Before Dable, I mean, you go back last year, the Giants aren't coming back.
Mm-mm.
And it's not just the Giants. I think it's a combination of both. I think the Giants play better in the second half. I think this coaching staff makes great adjustments. But it's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is another instance where I think they've got a similar situation to the Rams. I mean, really, the only guy that Aaron feels comfortable throwing the ball to is Randall Cobb. And let's be honest, Randall Cobb's not Cooper Kupp.
No.
So I think the Packers are even in worse shape than the Rams. I mean, at least the Rams have Cooper Kupp. I mean, hell, he can catch 200 yards a game. Randall Cobb's 40 years old.
Yeah,
he had a good game against the Giants. I mean, he had 7 catches for 100 yards. But, I mean, who is the number 2 option? I mean, Alan Lazard. I know he had a touchdown in this game, but I'm just not a big fan of him.
Yeah.
This Romeo Doubs, I don't know how you pronounce that, but, he's a rookie. He's kind of learning on the job. They've refused to play Amari Rodgers, who they drafted out of Clemson, who, I'm a big fan of just from watching him play in high school here in Knoxville and then seeing him dominate at Clemson for 4 years. I don't know why they won't play him. And then they've got, 52-year-old Mercedes Lewis at tight end, who I can't believe he's still playing, but I just don't see where the pop and the sizzle is in this receiving core. We used to complain before that all he had was Devontae Adams. Well, shit, at least he had Devontae Adams. What's he got now? Nothing. It's not looking good. And, if you can't run the ball, then you're forced to throw it to these guys. And I'm just not sure they're gonna get it all done. And the second half they scored 2 points in the second half, and that wasn't by the offense.
Right. And it was at the end of the game in a giveaway, so it wasn't even that. So,
right.
This is where this young coach, everybody's questioned, is it LaFleur? Is it Rodgers? Is it LaFleur? Is it Rodgers? Well, LaFleur's got to start showing something a little bit now. He's got to come up with new schemes or something to get his, all-world quarterback back on track in that team because, Minnesota 4-1, not looking bad right now. So,
yeah, luckily the Lions and the Bears still suck. So the Packers, as Aaron Rodgers would say, just relax. As long as they can keep pace with the Vikings, they should be all right. And this defense is solid, man. I'm really impressed with the Packers defense, and that's why I give your Giants a lot of credit because being able to come and score 17 points in the second half against this Packers defense, to me, was very impressive.
What I love about this Giant team right now is they remind me, the Giants have never been a pretty team. I don't care if it was with the Coughlin days or Parcells days. You watch them, and at the end of the game, they've scored enough to win. But it's not like they come up with these plays that you go, wow, where did they come up with that? But Brian Dable's starting to show a little bit of that. like that reverse on the goal line,
Yeah.
things like that. He's showing a little bit of creativity that when they get all their spots together, and if they're given the patience, I can see down the road. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You get a couple wide receivers. I don't know if Daniel Jones will still be there, but I can see that this guy has an offensive mind and a philosophy, and he knows how to put a team together. They make adjustments. Martindale has been a revelation on defense. They haven't played this style of defense, God, since Coughlin left. And, so there is a lot of things to build on. But like, I was saying at the beginning, these idiots going, no, trade away Saquon. No, you should bottom out. No, let's win as many games. Maybe if they win 7 games, and I mean 7 legitimate games, not like the 6 games Joe Judge won in that, the COVID year. If they show some promise, first of all, players might want to come here, and secondly, it's something to build on with their in their locker room. And these people who just get so into get a draft choice. Sound like a stupid parrot.
Well, yeah, and look what they're doing on defense. I mean, some of the guys that have really stood out are guys that other teams, didn't want. Julian Love was a 4th-round draft pick. He led the team in tackles on Sunday in London, and has been playing really good, in my opinion. Jalen Smith was released by the Cowboys after they gave him a big contract. They basically paid him to go away. The Green Bay picked him up for a week and cut him. And, the Giants just picked him up again recently. And, he had a pretty good game against the Packers, finishing up 2nd on the team in tackles. Tony Jefferson, another guy, kind of got, left out by the Ravens, and he's played well. It's just the group together has really come together and gelled. And I think, impressed me. Micah McFadden's getting to play, the guy that I really loved coming out of Indiana. I love watching that guy come around, and I just think that it's a good group of players, and maybe not the big 1st-round draft picks. I mean, they've got a couple with Thibodeau and those guys, but really it's some guys that other teams didn't even want, who've really learned how to play together as a team for the Giants.
And it's the coaching. It just comes down to coaching. And I know we're running towards the game, but I wanted to do a little bit on the Jets. And I hate to throw. I know these Jets fans are so happy after Sunday, but pump a little brakes on. That was not the real Dolphins team, okay? And you knocked their 2nd-string quarterback out on the first play of the game or second play of the game. That helped. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit on this Jet team, because you're still playing. At least the Giants, they're playing. They're in. I don't know. I just don't see this Jet thing. I just don't see it.
I'm with you on that, but at the same time, let's be honest with each other. Think about when we talked in the preseason about the beginning of the Jets schedule.
I thought they were going to be 1-9.
Me too. And we both said they might be a better team this year, and they might start off 0-6, 0-7. I mean, Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Steelers, Dolphins. Now, they've gotten a little bit lucky because they got the Browns without, Watson. They got the Dolphins without Tua.
Steelers were a mess.
Hey, but they can't control who's playing and who's healthy and who's suspended. They can only play who's on their schedule. So they're playing who's on their schedule, and they're playing pretty good. I mean, they lost week 1 to the Ravens 24-9. That was just Lamar playing out of his mind. They came back and won that amazing game against the Browns with a no-quit attitude. And then, the Bengals game didn't go as planned. But then, they played really well against the Steelers and did everything they could to win that game against the Dolphins. So I am impressed with the way they've started the season with the schedule they've got. And I think it'll be this week is huge, because I want to see who's going to show up, the Jets or the Packers, because that's a big game up in Lambeau at 1:00 on Fox.
You're right. You're totally right. And you would think that Green Bay is going to be PO'd, But you never know. You never know. You're right. I've said it many times. I like Robert Saleh, and I want the Jets to give him a real good look. I think he's the real deal. I think he's a real football coach. Unlike the Rex Ryans of the world who are all bluster, I think that Robert Saleh is in his heart a football coach, and I think he brings something that that team needs, which is that quiet confidence, that players coach, and I think you're right. You're right. I just get so, because I'm up here. The Jet fans, they're so desperate for something that they cling on to any little hope, and you sit there and you got to go, wait, guys, calm down, like me.
No. I'm with you. I'm not ready to start talking playoffs or anything, but I'm just saying that, if we've got to be consistent. And before the season, both of us talked about how they might be better. They've got a lot of guys that were injured last year that are going to be playing this year, and we expected them to improve under year 2 under Robert Saleh. But at the same time, we're like, man, that schedule's rough. And especially just the way that it was laid out, home versus the Ravens, on the road in Cleveland, home versus the Bengals, on the road in Pittsburgh, and then back home, against the Dolphins in a interdivision game. We just were like, man, if they start off, 0-6, we wouldn't have been shocked.
And like you said, you can't apologize for playing teams when they're a mess. And they might get, if they get through Green Bay. I know they got New England coming up, and you got Zappy as a quarterback. You might have a few things going in the right direction for you.
Well, not only that too, but we also talked at nauseum, or I did. I know, and I believe you agreed with me that this draft was the best draft that I've ever seen in New York Jets history. And all these guys are producing. I mean, Michael Clemens is getting a lot of playing time. He was their last pick in the 4th round, or one of their last picks, I think.
Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner was the player of the week. Clemens was their last pick in the 4th round, but Garrett Wilson was the rookie of the week the week before. Breece Hall has been playing. Jermaine Johnson got his first sack 2 weeks ago. He's been getting after it. Jeremy Ruckert starting to get the feel of the game. These rookies they've got are starting to really help, and that's what you need is a young nucleus that can grow together, and that's what's happening.
That's for sure. Okay, let's get into our power rankings. I'll start it out. Philly number 1, no doubt about it. Buffalo number 2. I got Kansas City number 3. Number 4, I got Dallas. Number 5, I got Baltimore. Number 6, I got Minnesota. Number 7, I got Tennessee because they're on that 3-game winning streak. I got San Francisco right behind them. Jimmy G is doing enough, and their defense looks great. Number 9, I got Tampa Bay because of their defense, no other reason. Number 10, and I'm doing this, but there's a little asterisk here. I gave it to New York Giants because they're 4-1. But right behind them are my bubble teams, and I got the Bengals, Packers, and Rams, who I believe more in. It's just in one of those 3 teams, or maybe all of those 3 teams, will push themselves somewhere up into my top 10 over the next 11 weeks or 12 weeks.
Yeah, I mean those last 3 or 4 are the ones that are kind of hard to choose. I mean, I think we've got the same top 3. I've got the Eagles, I got the Bills, and then I got the Chiefs. And then number 4, I've actually got the Ravens. I know they've lost 2 games, but the 2 games they've lost, they easily could have won. And they were ahead in both those games and lost big-time leads. And I just don't see them continuing to do that. And then I've got the Niners after them. I know they're 3-2, but I feel like with Jimmy G at the quarterback position and actually getting reps with the starters, I'm feeling pretty good about them. They've got Emmanuel Mosley, tore his ACL. He's out for the year. Nick Bosa got banged up last week, so they need him to get back. They need everybody healthy, but shit, that's every team. After that, at 6, I've got the Buccaneers, even though I'm not really sold on them, but you got to put them up there. I got the Vikings. After that, at 7, I've got the who's my 8? I've got the Dallas Cowboys. I just love the way that defense is playing. And, I just don't know how you can't believe in that. Defense travels, buddy. And they're playing good. And then at 9, I've got the Titans. And at 10, I got the Packers.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I did probably the only week I'll have New York Giants in there, but they're 4-1. I had to give them some bottom teams. I got Carolina.
I think it's funny that neither one of us have the Dolphins in the top 10 anymore. Remember how they were like, people were putting Dolphins at number 1, and me and you didn't rush to do that after the 3-0 start. I mean, I gave them credit for it, but I wasn't putting them up at number 1 like a lot of people did.
No. Lose your starter. There you go. No, okay. Bottom 3: Carolina, Pittsburgh, Houston. I got Pittsburgh. I feel so sorry for Mike Tomlin because he deserves much, much better. But right now, they're just a mess.
Yeah, I've got the Commanders, the Panthers, and the Texans.
All right. So we just disagree on Washington. We had 4. We probably have the same. My players of the week, I went with Josh Allen, number 1. Austin Eckler, number 2, and Travis Kelce, number 3. I mean, I've watched the tight end position for a long period of time. I remember Kellen Winslow. Mark Bavaro will always be my favorite tight end because he was a giant. But I mean, right now it's hard not to believe that in the last decade we've watched 3 of the 3 best tight ends ever, and that's Gronk, Kelce, and I'm putting Mark Andrews of Baltimore right up with them. I mean, they are just unstoppable when they want to get open. When you need a pass, I've never seen tight ends that can get open like these guys. And it's coming. They're there.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't stop them. So, I mean, watching him the other night against the Raiders, it was like, how can you not put your entire defense on him? Because you might as well. He's going to give. If not, he's going to catch it.
Yeah. No, that was pretty amazing. And he didn't have a ton of yards, but he had a ton of touchdowns. So, you got to give him credit for that. They wouldn't have won that game without him. But I thought Josh Allen was freaking unbelievable. 424 yards, 4 touchdowns on the Steelers D. That was embarrassing. I also had to put his counterpart up there, Gabriel Davis, who still no one seems to really talk about a bunch. He had 3 catches for 171 and 2 touchdowns.
And then one he took away from Minka Fitzpatrick. God. I mean, one-handed, take it running full speed, and you take it away from let's face that, Minka Fitzpatrick can play.
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the best safeties in the league. And Gabe Davis is a big old dude, man. So to be that big and that strong and that fast is pretty impressive. And another guy here, usually I don't put guys in here who lost, but I got to be honest, man. Geno Smith has been playing football, and nobody I didn't give him a chance to be. I mean, I thought I gave him a chance to win the job just because
Drew Lock is terrible.
Yeah, because Drew Lock sucks. And, I just thought Geno knows the system. He's been up there for years watching Russ being his backup. I was like, he might win the job, but I really thought he was a placeholder kind of guy. Waiting for the next young quarterback next year. But he's not. He's played amazing. Their offense has not been their problem. I mean, they gave up 39 points to the Saints, who haven't been able to score all year long. So you can't really blame that loss on Geno. But the way that he's played this year, I got to give him some credit, man. I mean, he put up 48 points last week on the Lions, and you're like, oh, well, that was the Lions. Don't give him credit for that. And then he comes back against the Saints, who I don't care what you say, the Saints have a good defense. And Geno put up 32 points on them and had 3 touchdown passes with no interceptions. Yeah. So I just think the way he's resurrected his career, the way that he is, just handled this like a pro. I've got a lot of respect for him right now. And I just love watching him. He's playing great too. Yeah. It's not just like he's getting lucky. He's really playing within himself and doing a great job.
He's showing a lot of maturity, which is great. All right, our picks of the week. Last week, 3 for 3, 8-7 now on the year.
Nice.
I've been going the last 2 weeks with all underdogs. This week I'm going with all favorites. I picked Tampa Bay, who is giving away 8 points to. Where are they? Where are they? Buccaneers are giving 8 points to the Steelers. Cincinnati giving 2 to the Saints. And Minnesota giving 3 to the Dolphins.
Yeah, I've got this Vikings as well. I think the Dolphins are in big trouble with their third string quarterback, and the Vikings are playing good right now. So I'm liking what I'm seeing out of them. I'm also sorry, buddy, but I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to beat the Ravens. But they may cover. I don't know. It's very possible, but we'll have to see. I can't believe you didn't touch the Bills and Chiefs game. You don't have a pick in that one.
No, I know. That's just a pick 'em for me.
Yeah, me too, buddy. I'm trying to see here because I
no guts with that one.
No, I lost my. So I got the Vikings. I've got the Patriots, who are. I think the Browns are favored by 2.5, so they're getting 2.5 in Cleveland. And I've got the Patriots in that one. Hold on, I've got to create my new list here because I lost mine. So I've got the Patriots who are getting 2.5 against Cleveland, and then I'm going to go with the Jets who are getting 7.5 against Green Bay.
Jets and Pats.
I think they're going to play all right, man. I mean, they got some confidence right now. They're rolling. The Packers just, got beat by the other New York team. So who knows, man? Gangrene, right?
Well, yeah. And, and there's something about, at some point, it's not going to always work out for Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? And maybe this is the year it doesn't work out for him. Minnesota seems to be serious. Like I said, last week, you look at that game, you go, last year, the Giants would have probably lost 31-10 or 37-10. And, hey, God bless. It would be great to have both the Giants and the Jets be competitive the rest of the way and give New York something to work with. Because, it's been a long time since both of them been good at the same time. We had it work with the Mets and Yankees this week or this past summer. Gave the New York fans something to think about and watch every night. And it'd be nice to have our Sundays occupied like that and get back to where both fan bases can be proud of their team.
No doubt. It should be a good weekend of pro football. Like I said, I'm very interested to see that Jets-Packers game. You got the Jaguars and the Colts, where the Jaguars, I think, what did they beat the Colts like 7 times in a row?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see if that continues. And then I think that Bengals-Saints game should be a pretty good matchup as well down in New Orleans.
Who do we got on man coverage on Sunday?
Not sure. It's a good question, but we've got a slew of games. I'm actually going to be on location on Saturday down in the heart of it, where Tennessee is playing Alabama for the first time since both teams have been undefeated since 1989, and the first time since 1941 that they've both been undefeated here in Knoxville. So should be a very interesting game. And I'm very, very interested to see what happens, whether or not the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback from Alabama, Bryce Young, whether he plays or not.
Yeah, that shoulder, I give him credit, but, also I'm sure there's somebody whispering in his ear going, first round draft choice.
Well, I mean, why play if you're hurt? I mean, I don't think it'd be a smart move for him or a smart move for Alabama to put him out there if he's injured. I mean, this other kid's played now 2 weeks in a row. He seems to be getting a little bit better. I mean, he's still a young kid who doesn't have a whole lot of experience throwing the football, but you can run on the balls. And I could see this kid, running on this Tennessee defense if he has to. So I don't think he'll go out there if he's hurt, and they haven't announced that he's playing. So I think it's going to be a game time decision.
And who's Michigan playing? Michigan playing Penn
Michigan
State?
plays Penn State. Yep.
Yeah, so that should be another good game on Saturday. So it'll be another exciting weekend of football, and hopefully maybe we'll get some kind of a football game tonight to watch. But have yourself a great weekend, and I will be in touch, and we will be back next Thursday night, 7 p.m. Everybody enjoy the football. We will see, and the baseball. We got playoff baseball too. So see everybody next week. Have a good one.
All right, buddy.